Welcome to Bob Cargill's Marketing Show, a ridiculously awesome podcast bursting with insightful commentaries and intriguing conversations on the topics and issues that are on the minds of marketers, advertisers, social media, and PR professionals today. Hey, how are you? This is Bob Cargill of Bob Cargill's Marketing Show. I hope each and every one of you is doing very, very well. And I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for listening, for watching, for tuning in to Bob Cargill's Marketing Show. Today, like my last episode, I'm going to be talking to Kashish Jain. Kash is a recent graduate of Northeastern University College of Professional Studies with a master's degree. And she and I have partnered, collaborated on some work this summer, the summer of 2025. She's been helping me with my podcast, with my blog, with content creation and videos and conversations such as what you're going to watch or listen to here. If you're listening to the podcast, the audio version, you're listening. If you're watching it on YouTube, you're both listening and watching. And I appreciate the time. I appreciate the consideration. I appreciate the support. And I hope you enjoy listening and watching Bob Cargill's Marketing Show, this time around, again, with Kash Jain. Hey, everybody, how are you? I hope each and every one of you is doing very, very, very well. This is Bob Cargill. I am here with Kashish Jain, and Kash and I are working together this summer of 2025. We're collaborating and partnering up on a few projects, and it's a very fascinating venture, and it's a mutually beneficial venture. That's what we are doing. We're creating content. That could be video, that could be blog posts, that could be who knows what's down the road. But we're working together, doing interviews of each other like this, discussions with each other like this. Kash is writing a lot of great blog posts for my blog, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How are you today, Kash?
I'm all good. Thank you so much for asking and for that beautiful introduction. Professor Cargill has been one of my favorite people at Northeastern, and I'm so happy that I get to work with him. I'm definitely the luckier one here. So thank you so much for that. Today, in today's episode, we decided to talk about things that people don't really want to talk about, like dealing with people, people management, how to be diplomatic when someone says something you don't like at your workplace, and how that also affects your work with, like what Professor Bob Cargill is doing, working with social media marketing, and, what he sees going on around there. So why don't we start? The questions I have for you, Professor, are going to be generic as well as niche. But I do want to ask you that you've done a lot of things in your life, and I'm pretty sure you've met a bunch of people who think you're absolutely crazy because you chose a different path, or you had like an unconventional career. How did you just, be okay with that at the same time not wanting to validate or justify why you're doing something?
It's a fantastic question, Kash. And we were just talking off camera before we hit record, and we talked a tiny bit about this, but I said I can talk extemporaneously about this. Because it's an important issue, and I've dealt with it my whole career, not 40 plus years, and also in my personal life, and also on social media, and that is dealing with difficult people, or people who are different, or people who are criticized, or sometimes we say haters out there. That's a strong term, but you have to believe in yourself. So hey, I'm going to tie it back to you are a rock star, Kash, because that's why you have to feel good about yourself, knowing that you are a rock star, at least feeling like a rock star, maybe not literally. And what you put out there matters. What you put out there counts. Think about rock stars or athletes or actors, actresses. They don't always, make hit movies or hit home runs or make, top 40 on the radio. They keep at it again and again and again. And that's what you have to do, is ignore the distractions and believe in yourself and believe in the pursuit of your goals. And that path may not be straight and narrow and upwards trajectory all the time. Zigzag and people get in your way, block you, again, criticize, say no. You have to learn to deal with all of that. That's what I would say. It's easier said than done too.
Yeah, that is very true. Sometimes that could easily come in the way, but I do believe that the paths that each one takes, they're very subjective. What's right to me can be, completely misleading for someone else and vice versa. I think there is no one way to success, and I think it's okay to be creative in your own way, but also being sure that you're practical enough and focusing on the right things.
Yeah, and that's a comparable point to what you made the last time we had this conversation, Cash, and I couldn't agree with you more that and sometimes frankly I've leaned towards the, as you said, unconventional, impractical. But that's also, I think, something I've learned over the course of my lifetime is okay. So in other words, don't be afraid to take some chances. Don't be afraid to go off the beaten path, if you will, the road less traveled, and where you may discover something, blaze new trails, you may invent something, you may leaders, people who are, the 1% of the people who come up with things extraordinary or succeed at the highest level. And I don't just mean financially, they usually are a little bit different. They usually do break some rules. They usually do fall out of line. That's what I have learned over the course of my lifetime, that it's okay. But at the same time, what you said, everybody's path is different. Some people aren't comfortable stepping out of line, doing things differently. I am very comfortable doing things differently.
Yeah, I can definitely tell that. And you also did mention that your industry, being in social media marketing and building a personal brand, a lot of people, when, like, let's say Instagram was out, or when, there was this whole social media wave going, content could have been considered to be cringe. Or some people, why would think it's embarrassing to just put yourself out there. How did you move past that and just put yourself in your face, and like, you just talking when you're jogging on social media without caring what anyone thinks? And I think it's really bold to really be that upfront.
It took me years. I don't think when I was early in my life journey could I do what I do now. And I know that term cringe, and I just read it the other day when people were talking about social media, and I'm sure a lot of my content has been cringe, and not necessarily has it all been looked upon favorably, but I try to, and by that I mean I don't think I've ever post anything inappropriate or nasty, not at all. I always try to keep it positive and within certain boundaries. But I understand if someone thinks, oh, Bob's over the top, or Bob's being too much, or Bob's doing something silly, or Bob's endangering himself by walking across the street with the camera in his face and not watching where he's going. Listen, again, I'm who I am, and I am comfortable in my skin. I wasn't necessarily comfortable in my skin decades ago, and I still struggle dealing with occasional naysayers or imaginary naysayers, the voices in your head. I've talked about this pretty openly that yeah, but let's just leave it that for now. That I have an inner critic that is probably my worst critic, and that's myself. And I have to overcome that. I have to just be strong and keep going forward and put it out there. I've learned that vulnerability, Cash, can be a strategy. I am vulnerable, not strategically, but hey, it works. Okay. So what I'm saying is I'm not intentionally vulnerable. It's just who I am organically. And it works in this day and age. It didn't necessarily work many years ago. People used to be more unkind, more cruel. There was a lot more teasing and bullying when I was young than there is now. There's still plenty of it, too much of it though.
That makes a lot of sense. So overall, you're saying that, in a gist, that you trusted yourself much more than caring about what people think, because you knew that was you. And I think you have to be very strong as well if you got to put yourself on the internet. And I think not everyone can do that, but it definitely makes you tougher, because you're always going to get a lot of contradictory opinions. There's always going to be people who agree and disagree. But, like I always say, that so much in life is so subjective.
Everything in life is subjective. And what you just said, it made me think, I don't, none of us here potentially all the potential criticism that's out there, all the naysayers, the second guesses, the people who doubt in us. I know there are those people, and those people could be close to you or complete strangers. But again, like a baseball player, like a rock star, I saw Kesha the other night in concert. Talk about being bold and blazing new trails and what a career she's had. She's only 38 years young, and she's she's going to conquer the world. She already is conquering the world, and that's because of her inner strength. But I also know, because she shares, that she has had many low moments during her personal and professional journey, many times of doubt and second guessing herself. I've gone through the same thing. I'm just not a public figure like Kesha is. I don't have the big platform like she does. I wish I did. And maybe it's not too late for me, but I am a big fan of hers. And that's a good example of her vulnerability. Now has drawn her fans closer to her and has built her fan base bigger than ever, because she is who she is. And she has a song, "We Are Who We Are." That's how I feel about life. Do not judge people. People do judge people, but I try not to, and I wish others wouldn't. And let's in our heads just say, if they do, so what? Keep going.
I love that. I love that so much. That's a great mindset to have. I also like how you said she's 38 years young.
Yeah. Well, listen, to you that might seem old, but to me that's very young.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, let's dig deeper into community building. Not just on social media, but also in person. You are an amazing professor working at all of these universities and colleges. You've interacted with thousands of students. You have an amazing following on social media, on Instagram, across LinkedIn, on YouTube. How did you build your community? Did you try to attract a certain niche audience, or you just wanted to fulfill your purpose by doing your bit online?
That's something I could have done differently, Cash, and do look back upon and say, oh, I mean, it ties back to the question about monetization and being a business person versus just being me. I'm just being me in a business setting, and I'm not looking to monetize or I'm looking for attention. Yeah, I'll admit that, because if I don't have the attention, I'm like the tree that falls in the woods and nobody's there to hear it. I'm silent. I do want people to hear me, so I need a following, but I don't focus on building that following hardly at all. Hardly advertise at all. Never bought any followers. I'm not a salesperson. I'm a promoter. I'm loud sometimes. I share a lot. I'm emotional, passionate, sensitive, full of opinions. I'd like to think knowledge and expertise, now that I've reached this age where I've been in marketing for 40 plus years. So I just keep putting myself out there, and organically, one person at a time. Cash and then John down the street, or Barbara, my wife, or I don't know. I'm trying to think of people, one person at a time. If they like my content, if I know they're reading or listening or watching, that makes me happy. I'd love to have it, in the thousands, millions, like a Kesha or Bruce Springsteen or whomever. But we are who we are, and I just keep putting myself out there. I'm happy with, again, if there's just one other person on the receiving end of my messages, like yourself, Kashish.
Gotcha. No, that makes a lot of sense. I absolutely love that. So your community has been first because of your work. You've never chased the community, but it automatically built up because people liked what you were doing. And I think that is how it should be, because that shows the value in your content. And I think so too.
How you said that, never chased my community. You have such a way with words. And no, I never purposely said, oh, I'm going to build a big community, so I'm going to write about this or talk about that. Not at all. Not at all. I was like this from day one. And like I say, some of my feelings and vulnerabilities and idiosyncrasies wouldn't be necessarily accepted, when I was younger. And even up until, 10, 20 years ago, the world is evolving, changing, being more inclusive, more open-minded. And I find I don't know if it's because I'm old and people are giving me a little more respect. I don't know, but I find things I'm saying now that I've been saying for a long, long time, people are paying a little more attention, and that couldn't be more satisfying. It's like you really are listening to me. You really, think what I have to say is at least worth listening to. That makes me happy.
Yeah, well, that relates to how we spoke about being purpose driven in our last conversation about how you actually, want to make a difference in any way possible in someone's life.
As we get older, Cash, it becomes more important. And I, when I was younger, wanted someone to make a difference in my life, to help me be able to make a difference in other people's lives as I get older. And so now, yeah, I feel I'm in the place where I can make a difference. And we collaborate. I said to you before we hit record that, we're better together than just one of us alone. And, I do value so much our relationship and my relationship with people, whoever I meet in any particular situation, because we can help each other. If everybody helps each other, we're all going to be better off down the road.
Yeah, those are some very powerful words. And that actually made me wonder, like, you said that when you were younger, you were looking for that. How did you exactly deal with conflict? I'm pretty sure you've been with so many people, and there are some things that are said, and you're like, should I just be straightforward and tell them that I don't like this, or should I be diplomatic and lean with kindness, or just have layers to my communication? How do you deal with conflict and disagreements?
So I hesitate because there's a lot of thoughts swirling in my complicated brain when you ask me that question. When I was young, before my professional career, I'll share something with you and whoever's listening. I was a rough and tumble kid. I was a scrapper. I played a lot of sports and liked to have a good time as I grew up in my teens and young 20s. And I got in a few fights, to be honest with you, fist fights and a little bit of trouble. I'm not proud of any of that, but I'm also not ashamed of that at this age, this point in my life. I don't like to look back and with any regrets. But so what I'm saying is I didn't necessarily deal with conflict all that well when I was young. I retaliated, or I may even have initiated some of that conflict. That might not have been the kind of conflict you're asking about, though. So
Yeah.
let's get into that in the workplace, and as a mature, grown adult. I do, and it may be because of my childhood when I didn't deal with conflict well. I know to this day I tend to be the nice guy. I've been told in the professional world that I'm too nice. I even was given a coffee mug by someone who worked with me years ago that said, "No more Mr. Nice Guy." I know I've been taken advantage of. I know I get walked over. I know I say yes too much. It's why I don't think earned all that much money, because I take what people have to offer, and I'm usually very, very happy. So there's an answer for you. I think when I was young, I didn't deal with conflict well, and I think it probably led to me avoiding conflict as an adult, verbally and in any other occasion. And I think I acquiesced usually to the other person. I'm getting a little stronger than when I was young. I mean, I'm physically strong, always, and emotionally strong. But when it comes to conflict, I tend to yield, to defer to the other person,
Yeah.
because I don't like to fight in any which way anymore. I haven't for decades.
Yeah, no, that's actually very relatable, and that's a beautifully honest answer. It can be hard to deal with people, and sometimes we think it's easier to avoid it, but then, like you said, people would walk over. And I think it's a loop. When someone does that to someone, you do it to someone else, and I think that loop has to be dealt with very diplomatically. That's what being in sales has taught me. You know. Being in sales teaches you how to deal with people with that kind of diplomacy and truly understanding where they come from. Like they say that being a humanist and being an empath is to first keep your mind open to, why they say what they say, and then really trying to find a mutual ground. And I think that sales tactics works in life. That's why they say that sales is one basic skill everyone should know, because sales is a way of life, and I couldn't be happier to be in the industry.
I'm really happy you're in sales at this stage, early stage of your career, Cash, because I didn't have much sales experience or skills at a young age, and I get eaten alive in that regard in business. I was a creative my whole career for the most part, creative director, copywriter, social media director towards the end of my corporate career. And again, I would be the person in the kitchen, if you will. The order would be placed, and I helped create it with the team. And sure, I managed that team and was quite relatively, should I say, successful. And I'm not talking financially, just in terms of visibility and accolades, what have you. But sales, that's selling yourself, that's selling what you make, that's selling your team, selling your company. And that's a skill that I don't have, like I think you already have at a young age. So good for you. I would partner with salespeople, though. I would do the marketing and the promoting that would lead to sales.
Yeah, no, you're the king of social media marketing. And I would just say that I've just started my career, and there's definitely a lot to learn. I wouldn't ever count this as expertise because I'm constantly surrounded by people who've been in the industry for decades, and you learn a lot from them. You know, how they sell an emotion instead of a product or a service, and the way they deal with people. I think it's just so powerful, and I can't wait to learn more. But that's beautiful. You have been an industry leader in social media marketing, and even the course you teach, I think has always been working with students and trying to shape them. Um, how do you feel working with students, and how have you dealt with a responsibility like that?
I love teaching, that, and my students mean the world to me, each and every one of them, Cash. And I feel blessed and lucky, and I never necessarily said that until I started teaching in the professional world. I worked so hard, long hours in the corporate world for many years, 35 plus years, and never did I feel the satisfaction I felt feel now as a professor at the different schools I teach at, Suffolk Northeastern, Fisher College this last spring, and MCPHS, Master College of Pharmacy. I enjoy it immensely, and I get fulfillment from teaching, and I get inspired from teaching. And again, I think I said earlier, the respect and the fact that they listen to me and trust me. Yes, it's a huge responsibility. But I've always been one to take on responsibility. I just never had authority. I just never had that title, that certainly not the salary to go along with that responsibility now. And I don't have the salary now either, but I do feel I have the respect of my students. And that means you don't know how much that means to me. Because I think now, going back to when I was a kid and when I was rough and tumble, and getting those fights with other kids in my hometown growing up, and maybe a few in high school and college too. I didn't feel respected. I was a short kid. I loved sports and wanted to be bigger than I was, and wanted to be more successful in sports than I was. And so I think it resulted in me acting out a little bit. So that has driven me my whole career. I matured, obviously, evolved, and as I said, acquiesced to others. In most cases, I always lead with kindness, as you said, but sometimes to my own detriment. Okay, sometimes it really can hurt me, but I'm okay with that. I can sleep at night, and yeah, I love teaching. There's not even a question. Every single student motivates me, inspires me. I have responsibility to each and every one of them, and I hope that I change each and every one of their lives for the positive.
I'm really sure you do. I've seen you teach, I've seen the way you are with your students, and when I look at them with you, I feel like they truly connect with you. It's beyond just a bond where you're a teacher and a student, but I feel like they relate with you a lot because you never talk to them like they're younger. You always try to learn from them as well. And I think that's the biggest reason why they all love you and respect you so much.
Kish, it's amazing you say that. And what I want to say again, emotions. I don't have tears, but I'm using I feel like I could have tears based on what you just said. When I was So I've been age agnostic period my whole life, meaning I don't try to judge people. I don't try to think someone's beneath or above me. And again, it didn't necessarily work a lot in my favor when I was younger, because a lot of the older people did act like they were older and they did have more status and more wealth, et cetera, et cetera. But now that I'm older in these authority positions, leadership positions, I, again, still the same me. And I feel like you. I feel like very young. I feel like just like I did when I was born, shot out of a cannon, and still every day I try to make the most of, and it's a good day if I can change someone's life for the better, or if someone, says, yeah, that's good. I agree with that. Or yeah, you helped me a little bit. That's what I live for someone else's, good, positive vibe. That makes me feel good.
Yeah, and that's one thing, we need more in this world for sure. It's people uplifting other people, and I think you've been doing that perfectly well. And that's what I wanted to highlight in this episode that we perfectly did, working with people in general, and how it should be. And I think you've been beautifully honest. So thank you so much for that. This has been a great, great episode.
Gosh, another great episode, and credit to you. You know, it's you who initiated these conversations and who are asking some of these deep questions that publicly, not necessarily have I been asked before. And yeah, I reveal a lot. People ask, I'll tell.
Well, the
Um,
difficult questions are the ones that make you grow, right? So it's important to have
yeah.
these conversations, and I love that I get to have them with you, someone who is that profound, and can share his wisdom with me. So I'm going to remember these tips for a very long time.
Cash, you're going to go far. I've told you that before. You were going to be huge, successful in your career and in your personal life. You're going to be light years ahead of me by the time you're done your journey. Um, I won't know how you did, but because I won't sadly be here.
Say that.
But I can anticipate. I can envision your success right now.
Well, thank you so much. Success, very subjective, but yes, that's always the goal. And like I said, everyone's trying to be a little bit more like you. So I think you're very successful in your own way. Don't let ever anyone tell you the contrary.
Thank you, Cash. My book that I wrote, I shared some of my innermost feelings, if you will, in that book, but I hope to write a second book. We've talked a little bit about that. My first book is a professional memoir. I hope to write that personal memoir someday and share quite a bit of those stories when I was young and why I think I'm the way I am, now that I'm older. But I'm happy with where I am. Everyone should be happy with where they are. We are who we are, as Kesha sang the other night in Mansfield. My wife and I saw her in concert. We are who we are.
Absolutely. There's a different type of courage in owning something like that. And like I said, I just love your honesty and everything.
Thank
Um,
you, Cash.
I'm
Awesome
sure
talking to
you were a
you.
different person growing up, and I can just clearly see why you are the way you are. And it brings a lot of wisdom. So thank you so much for being here with me. I am so excited to be, continuing the series with you and having these difficult conversations that are important to be said out loud. Because I know a lot of people think all this, but there's got to be someone who says it out loud for everyone. And yeah, I'm
Yes,
just
we should dig even deeper into some of this in our subsequent conversations because I think we're just scratching the surface. And I think if more students and more professors were, or let's just say more young people, more older people were like us and had these conversations, we'd all see that we're not all that different. Different parts of the world, different ages, but we're the same. People are people. We want the same things in life. Generally speaking.
Yeah, well, that reminds me that in the next episode, I want to talk more about time left. It's the thing I've been doing where I have dinner with strangers every Wednesday at 7 p.m. And these are like complete strangers. I've been doing that for 9 months. And what you just said is exactly my takeaway from this experience is that everyone is so different, but yet so similar. And we got to make an episode 3 on just this concept. So I can't wait to talk again and bring another episode for you guys. And if there's anything you want to see, please put it down in the comments and we're happy to talk about it.